In June of 2013, one Mr. Robert Fox announced his indie game baby, Undertale, to the world with a Kickstarter. It was introduced as a traditional role-playing game known as To Get Hurt, a truly novel concept at the time until the specific implementation. And I think a lot of people seem to think the same, since its Kickstarter surpassed its humble $5,000 goal by tenfold in a little over a month. Using his magical love powers, Toby absorbed the money into his bloodstream and secreted out a game covered in his residue. And since then, Undertale has claimed the world over, even spawning a quasi-sequel named Deltarune. But through its massive claim, Undertale has made many players question how we interact with certain types of media, and even how we act towards others behind all those glowing screen views in our daily lives. This is all thanks to its fresh and innovative take on player choice-centered storytelling, unique battle mechanics, and its aversion to certain game tropes like grinding for experience and fighting in battles. And today, we're going to be talking all about how the game does this and more, coming up. For this video, I'm going to assume you have played the game before, but if you haven't, let me give you a quick rundown of what's happening in it. Also, major spoilers ahead, so if you care about that, let me give you a sec to click off. All good? Okay, let's continue. Long ago, two races ruled over Earth, humans and monsters. One day, war broke out between the two races. After a long battle, the humans were victorious. They sealed the monsters underground with a magic spell. Many years later, Mount Ebit, 21X. Legends say that those who climb the mountain never return. We start with our character waking up in a patch of flowers that just so happened to break our fall. From there, we start our journey throughout the underground, encountering many monster friends and monster foes along the way. Our goal? Get to the castle of the king of the monsters, face him, and escape the underground. But how we treat these creatures will determine the fate of the underground, and the ending of the game, whether we show compassion to everyone we meet, show harm through self-defense to some, or ruthlessly cut down everyone we meet. Let's talk about these different routes throughout the game. In Undertale, there are three main routes: the merciful route, also called the pacifist or true pacifist route, the neutral route, and the merciless route, also known as the genocide route. These routes all hinge on our interactions with the characters within the game. For example, we choose to take mercy on every monster we meet, and take the merciful route. Every major character is able to be talked to and to be befriended. This route is regarded for having the most fulfilling conclusion, as you are able to solve each of the major characters' conflicts, and you are able to escape the underground while freeing the monsters at the same time. This is in stark contrast to the merciless route. To attain this route, you have to kill every monster in the game, and I mean every single monster. Each area makes you sit there and grind until the random encounters stop, and the game tells you, but nobody came. Next time, the game throws you into a battle. Because of this, the game treats you like a murderer, judging you every step of the way. Friends and foes alike turn against you. Comic relief is no more, because either they fled or you killed them. It gets to the point where a certain shopkeeper leaves behind a note telling you not to hurt their family. Yeah, shit just got real. The only fun parts of this route are the challenge of the boss fights, and that's only because the main characters are determined to stop you in your tracks. This route is purposefully designed to be the most unsatisfying to play through, leaving you only to a black screen upon completion and the sounds of the wind, due to the destruction of the world that you cause. And finally, we get to the neutral route. This route is sort of a mix of the merciful and merciless route. To get this route, you either have to kill some monsters to spare others, or it's your first run through the game, which in that case, you'll still get this ending regardless if you spare every monster. This route does lock you out of some character interactions, like the merciless route, but generally, most bad interactions can be avoided in this route, though there are unique interactions in this route if you decide to kill anyone. Now during the game, there are two character stats that are explained that are particularly interesting, EXP and LV. Throughout most of the game, the player is set up to think that these are the standard RPG stats, which may be true on the surface, but is revealed to us near the end of the game by the lackadaisical skeleton in the sands, was shown earlier to be a sentry of sorts to the king, that these are more than that. He stands in the last corridor before the palace. For misdemeanor, this is the only sentry station that he takes his job seriously. He acts like the gatekeeper between you and the king, judging you with his mysterious ability to read your EXP and LV stats. He is here to tell us that these stats are actually acronyms. EXP standing for execution points, and LV, or love, as foreshadowed by the malevolent Flowey the Flower at the beginning of the game, standing for a level of violence. These stats are implied by their written out forms and can only be obtained by defeating monsters with violence, aka killing them. During the game, most monsters won't be able to detect these stats, but they will be able to feel the effects of them. For example, during Sand's explanation, he tells you that love is a way of measuring someone's capacity to hurt. The more you kill, the easier it becomes to distance yourself. The more you distance yourself, the less you will hurt. The more easily you can bring yourself to hurt others. Now on the surface, this can apply as a general descriptor for the player, but it can also apply to the stat itself, because remember, the stat is a stand-in for the typical level system in RPGs. So, the more you kill, the higher your LV will become, and by consequence it becomes easier to hurt others due to the higher attack and defense stats that come with an LV increase. And sometimes, if your attack is high enough, monsters can feel that power emanating from your soul, and they will be scared enough to be instantly sparable, as if saying, "Please take mercy on me, I don't want trouble." But the few monsters that can detect EXP and LV, such as Sans and Flowey, they're the most interesting, because they can directly detect if we killed someone or not. Because if you do, they will most likely have something to say about it. They will mock and belittle you, intentionally or unintentionally, trying to appeal to your humanity until you stop doing it and or you reset the game so as if it never happened. Fortunately, this leads me to my next topic. Undertale is truly a unique RPG in the sense that grinding isn't necessary to enjoy the game to its fullest, and in fact, grinding is actively discouraged through conventional gameplay and through character interactions like the ones mentioned earlier. But first, let's talk about the gameplay itself discourages grinding. The first time you enter a battle, you notice two interesting buttons on the battle UI, Act and Mercy, and these are Undertale's claim to fame. By using the Act button to interact with and or talk with the monster until their in-battle name becomes yellow, you'll then be able to use the Mercy button, letting you spare their life and ending the battle without hurting the monster. This discourages the player from fighting and by proxy grinding by making each monster encounter engaging when acting. When you act in battle, each monster has a neat little back and forth with you. This actively encourages the player to seek out more of these interactions for the fun factor and humor, but if the player chooses to fight instead, the game gets a little monotonous. You see, each area has a specific quantity of monsters. If you choose to spare monsters, this quantity won't practically matter, but if you kill them, then that's one less monster roaming the area, and the game accounts for this. How? Well, the game lowers random encounter rates each time you kill a monster. Because of this, trying to grind kill monsters is a chore in itself due to how much time takes place between these encounters. And if you somehow manage to exhaust the monster count in your area, the game will make you feel guilty about it. Next random encounter you get, there'll be no monster sprite on the screen, and in the text box, there in tiny text, will be the words, "But nobody came," changing the music into a droning groan, amplifying the loneliness. This makes the player reflect on their actions as the encounter rate snaps back to normal, with the player only encountering the same empty screen. And NPCs outside battle will react to this. Some will be absent because they fled, others will be weary or scared of you passing by, all because they've seen what you've done. But what happens if you continue to grind despite of all of this? If you successfully make it through all the monotonous grinding and tough boss battles of the Merciless route, you're met face to face with Kara, or whatever you name the fallen human, within a black void. The lack of UI here is similar to when Flowey appears at the end of a neutral merciful route, suggesting that Kara is directly talking to the player, and not the character you play as. They start with saying, "Greetings. I am. Thank you. Your power awakened me from death. My human soul. My determination. They were not mine, but yours. At first, I was so confused. Our plan had failed, hadn't it? Why was I brought back to life? You. With your guidance, I realized the purpose of my reincarnation. Power. Together, we eradicated the enemy and became strong. HP, attack, defense, gold, EXP, LV. Every time a number increases, that feeling, that's me. Now what does this mean? In a now deleted tweet by Toby himself, he proposed a question asked often by others. What am I supposed to name the fallen child? He then answered by saying, your own name. All these things put together can hint that Kara is a metaphor for you. Kara stares at you as if you were looking in a mirror. You imprinted your will onto the game so much that you made it manifest as Kara's rebirth. With your human soul, with your determination, not the player characters. You did this. You twisted the character to reflect the malevolent inside of you. HP, attack, defense, gold, EXP, LV. Every time you gained a stat, every time you felt stronger or happy or accomplished, every time you did or didn't feel remorse for killing a monster. That feeling, that's you. And now you have to deal with the consequences of what you do. Kara gives you two options, erase and do not. No matter which one you pick, Kara still destroys the world in the end, and you're stuck with a blank void of a game window with howling wind next time the game looks back up. If you leave the window open for 10 minutes, Kara will have this to say. Interesting. You want to go back. You want to go back to the world you destroyed. It was you who pushed everything to its edge. It was you who led the world to its destruction. But you cannot accept it. You think you are above consequences. And it's this last line here that really puts it all in perspective. You think you are above consequences. To get this far, the power you have gained would have had to make you feel invincible, that no one could stop you, like you were above the consequences. But you're not, and you'll see why a little later. Kara then gives us an option to agree or disagree, and if you disagree, they give us the option to sell your soul in exchange to bring the world back. This will bring the game back to its normal state, with a catch. You'll find out anytime you try to get a good ending, that ending will be tainted because now Kara owns your soul, and it's implied that after the ends of these routes, Kara takes control of your character. And that means the fates of the monsters you so desperately tried to save are going to end with them dying. This is the game giving you a false sense of security, then only to rip it away from you, forcing you to reap what you've sown. So now you may be asking, what is the point of talking about all of this? Well, this shows that Undertale wants to teach us to think about our actions. It wants us to see that what you do matters, even if what you are interacting with is behind a screen. This is an important lesson to learn in an age where interactions with people are becoming increasingly more common behind the screens of ours. There are very real people behind the screen, and you can seriously hurt someone if you're not careful. This idea is prevalent all throughout the game as Toby designed the characters to react how a real person would react to your actions. If you act like a murderer, you get treated like a murderer. If you act like a saint, you get treated like a saint. The game makes it plain and simple. You are not above consequences no matter where you go and what you do.